All right. We're live. We are live, all the way live. Um, oof, late night last night. Shout out to all of those who were able to make it to the pleasure chat. We had an incredible night um, with Chloe McIntosh, who is an entrepreneur. She's she's amazing. She's built this really beautiful app called Kama, which is all dedicated to sexual wellness, uh, meditation, and loving your body and loving pleasure. And so the conversation last night was on pleasure, and it was really really good for those of you that were able to make it on Clubhouse. See, you see. Shout out to my boy Jason Herschel, and he just sent me text message. You see, I'm wearing the Lakers shirt. Shout out to the Lakers doing the thing. You know, I live in Los Angeles now, where my loyalties lie anymore, but I'm a Warrior fan by trade. So, I'm going to talk to you today about a few things. We have no guests, which is fine. I can do this solo. And we're going to start introducing more guests. But today I thought I'd talk to you about trends that we're seeing in the network around building communities and you know, just the idea of trust and the idea of, you know, what's possible when you think about building your community, your company, your product, your vision around those that really trust your voice and trust your brand. Um, and so, you know, I'm really privileged and honored to kind of be building something at this moment in time, to be building a company at this moment in time, um, and to be able to zoom out every week, uh, to think about, you know, what feedback I'm getting from the community. And I think that there'll be a trend. Um, there'll be a trend in companies that build um, their businesses with and on top of and surrounded by, enveloped by their community. And you know, I'm in this community platform called Clubhouse, uh, and that's been really an interesting moment to see, you know, an app being built in real time where the founders of the actual platform are in the platform with us, you know, like it's not that that's necessarily a novel concept, um, but the ability to kind of move in real time, to adapt in real time, to change features in real time, to get user feedback in real time is pretty unique, you know, and the ability to move at the speed of culture, to move at the speed of culture. I think that there is something profound for some of you out there who are building a business, who are building a service, who are building a product. The ability to move at the speed of culture actually means that you have to be paying attention to culture. It's why we do this show called Culture Signals, because we're paying attention to the signals that culture is giving us. Culture is not just Black people or hip hop or sneakers or TikTok or influencers. Those are results of the culture. Those are no better way to say that. those are subcultures in many ways, right? Um, but culture is really what people are paying attention to, right? So that's the way that we define culture at the Authenticated. Um, and there's lots of nuances around that word and so forth. I don't want to get into semantics about this morning, but the idea that I want to kind of discuss today is moving and building at the speed of culture and what that requires from you. And what does it mean to build the 21st century company when you're moving at the speed of culture, when you have the ability to listen to your customers, to take care of your employees and vendors, and have um, and have a diverse set of investors that reflect the culture, that reflect the times that we're in. I've been calling myself a cap table activist, primarily because I've been spending a lot of time with founders about their businesses, and it's led me to this sort of this this thought, right? That you know, in the middle of Black Lives Matter, right? Like, I don't think that like your employees, maybe those of which who are African American, I mean, do they care that you gave them Juneteenth off? What they really want is a space to work in that feels safe, that feels like there's opportunities for them to advance, where they look at your cap table, they look at your board, and they look at your executive leadership, and they go, "Wow, like that really is a place that I'm proud to call my employer." And we're building a product that I want the world to see. So I'm just using the Black Lives Matter example as one example of where uh, I have been seeing pain points, right? So the question becomes, and I was thinking about this because I read last week, I think it was Coinbase that has this whole thing where it's like kind of leave your political problems at home, just come to work, and we'll go ahead and fire you if you want to like talk about stuff that you care about, right? Um, and I'm not saying that every organization needs to be um, well, no, I'm going to say it this way. Every organization that believes that it's building products and services and goods for consumers, I believe, has a duty to be paying attention to the um, to the things that matter to their employees, um, to the concerns of citizens that make up um, both their consumer base and um, and their employee base as well. And so I think it's really, really important that companies that are moving at the speed of culture be plugged in to the culture. And I see someone just sent me a text that said, "All lives matter." Sure, absolutely, all lives matter. The point I was trying to illustrate is more um, maybe you relate to the party. But the point was that in the middle of Black Lives Matter, um, I think that companies, and many of them did, um, need to look at more than just giving employees Juneteenth off, but really taking that moment to examine internally. Uh, do they have a cap table that represents lots of diverse thoughts, right? Do they have executive leadership that is diverse across the board? The thing about the product I'm building today, for me, so we're building this community, and first of all, what I would really love before we even get started, you know I love doing this. If you don't mind, give me a little city check. What city are you coming in from? I just want to see who's out there. I see I see Corey Burns. Uh, thank you for the thought provoking uh, sign of approval. Appreciate you. But yeah, what city are you chiming in from? Would love to see where you guys are chiming in from. Boston. See you, Boston. Um, yeah. So you know, I'm deciding to build something that I feel like reflects the viewpoints, um, that reflects uh, the passions of the community that I'm serving. And the community that I'm serving in my product is a community that's diverse well, diverse from a let's just start with this, diverse from even a sector, right? So we have a network. It's called the Authenticated, and it's the software hardware analogy that I've been using. The software of the network is a collective of membership community. We do events, so we do Jeffersonian dinners. We've been doing gatherings around the world, um, and we provide opportunities for people who are, building startups, funding startups, executives uh, in some of the top companies, a space and a place to think about their business, to ask and probe in the questions that I'm asking, that we should be asking. What does it mean to be an in touch, connected, diverse organization, or um, what does it mean to be a global thinker? Right. A lot of founders in our network come from parts of the world that maybe aren't Palo Alto, right? That aren't Austin, that aren't some of the places where technology is obviously been centered. So we're very, very, very intentional about geography. We've been hosting dinners for Detroit, Miami, DC. So we're very, very intentional about the diversity of geography. We're very, very intentional about the sectors they come from. So my background, for those of you that don't know who I am, my background is I started off in the music industry. Had a pretty incredible, historic career in the record business, and made some amazing people, famous the old-fashioned way before social media. Then ventured off into tech in the late '90s and built my first community. Actually, my first startup, '98, and then went into the advertising business and ventured into a world I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about, how Fortune 100s procured services from advertising agencies. So I went into the digital world in the early 2000s. And then I ended up building my second business, which was a social media agency in 2010. And so did that, and really, really incredible opportunity to be at the forefront of what we're experiencing now. And then sold that business and moved back to the West Coast to play at the center of where venture, brand, and culture kind of come together. So because of this journey that I've been on, my network is I know people in the advertising business, I know people in the music business, I know people in venture capital, I know people in government because of my work in the city of Atlanta and just my passion when I lived in Atlanta to get more involved in understanding how government, local government plays a role in the economy. So my community is intentionally diverse from a from a sector. Um, and then ethnicity. The great thing about uh, traveling the world is I get to see the diaspora of what's the Black experience like in Sweden, what's the what's the Polish second generation experience like as in Detroit. I learned a lot about Detroit when we spent time there. I learned a lot about immigrant hustle in Detroit. Uh, what's the Ethiopian culture in DC? What's the Albanians sound like, and what do they do in the outskirts of Stockholm? So yeah, I found myself falling in love with this idea of diversity and understanding culture and um, understanding communities. And so our community is pretty intentionally diverse. We cover the UAE heavy. We have a lot of members in our community are from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Israel as well. And we, we lean into the not just the coasts. One of the things about living in Atlanta is I fell in love with cities like Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Birmingham, Alabama, and so I'm intentionally, diverse geography, intentionally diverse from a standpoint of ethnicity, from verticals, because I believe in this, because I believe that when the table is diverse, diverse thoughts, diverse, frame of references, if you would, you can build a great business, and that's the business that we're building. And so as we begin to raise capital, I think about my personal cap table in the same way that I'm advising the clients that we work with. How do I make sure that I have a diverse cap table? I mean, I have mentors in my network that I spend time with that are, probably people that you wouldn't even think that I would know, that I would be um, even spending time with, getting counsel. And so I take in a wicked set of inputs from folks, and we'll continue to do that as investors. I mean, as a startup, we're going to take capital from people that I think can help me grow. And so we're raising capital now, and I'm thinking a lot about that. But it's also because of this moment. It's because I really, really believe that if we're building a business that reflects a new audience segment, a new mindset, and I also believe this. I also believe that, unfortunately, I feel like the times are drawing us into these silos. The times are, and because driven by technology and social media, and we kind of live in these in these chambers where you only hear from your crew. Um, I choose to not have toxic, um, uh, toxic behavior in my network, because I just don't want messy fucking people in my network. It's really simple. Um, and I'm much more focused on having people centered around values that I really care about. So in our network, generosity becomes, a pretty high standard. Being generous, being a giver and not just a taker. I started my network in a moment where I had a business partner. I've had a couple bad business partners, let's just say, and many of them, well, these two in particular that triggered me to start the Authenticated were takers, right? They were exploiting my generosity. They were exploiting my gifts, my talents. And I was just like, and I had a career of being very generous. I've always been, someone that you could call, and I have a connection. I know a guy or a gal. And I met for the first time in my life takers that were cold blooded, right? Just like snatch whatever, whether it's money or time, snatch it from you without any regard. Um, there's a book called Thick Face Black Heart, one of my favorites. In fact, I think I might do a book club around that soon, but written by a woman named Chin Chu. And the idea in Thick Face Black Heart is it's sort of like art of war. And on the crudest side of Thick Face Black Heart, they describe it as, being like a killer, right? Who can, like an assassin who can just like cut your neck and just move on, right? Or it's like a heart surgeon who has to perform heart surgery without thinking about killing the patient. And in this particular case, I met thick face black heart practitioners on the crude side, right? And so from those experiences, I just had a moment where I was like, man, like here's a guy, me, who had been in business for 20 years, and it always benefited from being generous. And I met, a couple of business partners along the journey that just had no regard for that. In fact, they abused that. And I literally, and people were like, "See, this is why you shouldn't do this. This is why you shouldn't." I ended up putting 50 people on text message on WhatsApp, and I said, "You guys, literally, the universe, whatever you believe in, I believe in God." And the way that God speaks to me is sometimes at 2:35 in the morning. I don't know about you, but it's kind of where sometimes I get jolted out of bed, and and I have to like put something down on my notes or record or voice or audio. And it was one of those nights. Probably was like 3:30 in the morning, and um, I was jolted out of bed, and the message was connect 50 people on WhatsApp. And so I'm obedient. So I just put 50 people on WhatsApp, and those 50 people became 320 people, and I had this network living between WhatsApp and Slack. Not my favorite platforms to build on, but it's fine. It was amazing. I didn't even really think about platforms to build on at that point. I was just like, wow, I want to connect my people in Dubai to my people in Boston, and my people in Boston to my people in Atlanta. You know, what amazing things can happen if you put incredible people together, right? That you put them together digitally. So that was the Authenticated. That's how we started. Very similar to how I started my first business in 1998. In '98, I built a business where I basically I created an email newsletter, um, and I created an email newsletter where I put started with like 300 people who I just emailed out using AOL at the time, and I just like talked about the business. I actually did like the equivalent of what I'm doing with you. I was doing an email newsletter form every week. And at the time, I had a big, powerful job in the music business, and we were on top of the world. And it was Destiny's Child, and the Fugees, and Nas, and Maxwell, and Lauryn Hill. And I was traveling the world, and we had all these, well, actually, no, I wasn't traveling the world. I was just traveling the U.S. Sorry, get back to that. I didn't actually love that, like at Sony Music, they never let us really travel the world. That's a problem. We'll get back to that. I want to talk about that. But yeah, I had this moment where our division at Columbia Records was just really winning, and I felt the itch to build something, to build a startup. And so from my desk, I told Michael Malden. My boss was Michael Malden. If you're watching, Michael, I told Michael Malden the other day. Michael Malden is Jermaine Dupri's father. And I told him, I said, we hadn't caught up in a long time. I said, I built an entire business from my office at Columbia Records at 550 Madison Avenue. Every record label executive had a side hustle. Mine just turned into a side hustle that I sold to a startup. I mean, I sold to a .com at the time. But similarly, I had this vision around putting people together, and connecting people from different industries. And what would it look like if I could put people together, right? From different industries. So I've always been, I mean, you've seen consistent threads in my career. That was 1998. Now we're in 2020. Wow. That was, well. And pretty much doing the same thing. Pretty much using the internet to gather people. That's my software, right? My hardware is the stuff we do behind the scenes. So manually, soon to be aided by some technology that we want to build, but manually, I'm connecting the gal with the startup idea with the gal with the fund, right? I'm connecting the leader in an organization who wants to see more, interesting, diverse candidates than his HR person saying to him, I guess, or his recruiter, and we, can help supply that. I'll give you the other scenarios. I don't know. You saw us with the Black Farmers Association with John Boyd. The farmers, and we're doing. We're a buyer seller market. There's a buyer and there's a seller, right? There's people that have things, and so on the back side of my network is what I call my hardware. My hardware is a marketplace that we built, and we're able to bring very simply buyer and seller together. Really simple model. Think about some of you, if you know the model of Soho House, right? So Soho House, their software is membership community, expensive matcha tea, right? Programs, and their hardware is real estate holdings from London to Barcelona to Miami. So we've been really thinking about the, the software and the hardware analogy in our business. But as I strive to build, the most inclusive, modern, dynamic and nimble, culturally aware company, you have to have mechanisms inside of your business that allow you to stay connected. I always joke, in order to do what I have to do, I have to think like an 18-year-old girl. And I'm raising one in the next room, by the way. But I do. Like, I have to think, I just believe it. I believe that 18 to 24-year-old women are like the future. I think that they have grown up as Gen Z, Gen Z in general. I'm just like, we have like 5 Gen Z people that we're mentoring, or we're trying to mentor all the time, kind of rotate. I just think Gen Z is a fascinating demographic, but having a daughter is just, I'm definitely a girl dad, right? And having a daughter who's 18 has been really special, because you get to see just how they think, how their mind thinks, how this next generation thinks about everything from sexuality to digital content to impact in the world. And I'm just so proud that this generation, and I hope you're listening, and I hope you send this to someone who's 18 to 24 or Gen Z. You have an opportunity in November to do something that a lot of our relatives fought and died for, and that's to get out and vote. So I'm just urging all of you, don't take it lightly. Voting is important. Even if you don't like the candidates, it's important to vote. It's important to vote down ballot. And it's important to get involved in the act of what we've been given as Americans, the opportunity, that the privilege we've been given as Americans to choose, who we want in office. Now, I'm not saying it's all perfect, but those individuals work for us, and many of our relatives have died for that opportunity. So don't take that lightly. But yeah, I think that this idea of staying closely connected to Gen Z. One, I mean, people think of mentoring as like you're older and you mentor people. No, my daughter mentors me every day. And I think, in building the modern business that I want to build, I want to hear from young people. I want to, they have a seat, they deserve a seat at the table. And I don't just like, cast them off as like, oh, that's my intern. No, like, we have an intern that just started with us last week. Shout out to Muñeca, who went to Berkeley School of Music. And her inputs are incredibly valuable to what we're building as a business. And when I came up, we were the interns, and we had to scrap, and but like, and you still have to scrap, Muñeca. Don't get it twisted. You got to earn everything. I'm not about this idea of just giving medals away to young people just for showing up. But at the same token, like the inputs and the viewpoints of young people are incredibly valuable. We actually went so far as to I created this idea that I wanted to mentor um, 18 to 24-year-olds with a prerequisite that they had started a business between the ages of like 12 and 18. And I got this because one of the people that I mentor is her name is Maxine Marcus. Uh, she came to me and she had started this business in high school. It was actually a Gen Z research company, and the company that she started is a Gen Z research company that she literally started while she was a junior in high school. And her father, who is a pretty prominent venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, he and I were on the phone, and he said, "Hey, my daughter is going to be going to USC." That was the worst part of the story. Shout out to my Bruins. Shout out to my UCLA Bruins. But besides her going to USC, I decided to take her to lunch, and so I took her to lunch, and she sat down and from across from me at Soho House, and as she began to open her mouth, I was like, "This kid is like 18." And she literally sounds like a seasoned venture capitalist. And I joked, I was like, okay, this is crazy. And so she's from her dorm room at USC. She's been running her business and incredibly proud of what she's been able to accomplish at her company, Ambasco. And I recognize that, young people are valuable and need to see at the table. So anyway, these are the principles. These are the values in which we are building a business. The question for you is, what are you building your business on top of? If you believe what I say to be true, that I don't care whatever business you're in, whether you're a restaurant, whether you are a doctor's office, especially if you're a doctor's office, whether you are whether you're whatever, I don't go on the list of things. It's not even a nice to have, it's a must have that you're building the business at the speed of culture. I'll bring up a couple of scenarios. The speed of culture. The culture dictates, let's just say, wearing masks in public, right? That's like a cultural. I mean, it's a public health mandate, and as you see, culturally, right? Some people adhere to that, some people don't. Where I live in my little cushy little California community, people are wearing masks. I can go to Huntington Beach, nobody's wearing a mask. It's a culture thing, right? So you're running a restaurant in my city, you're mandating masks. You're people are looking at you sideways if you're not wearing a mask. Huntington Beach, not so much, right? It's an example. and you have a restaurant in Huntington Beach. So culturally, you're looking at the culture, right? And you have a restaurant in Huntington Beach, and you decide to open that restaurant where I live, where you just take the culture of Huntington Beach and you try to bring it into where I live. Culturally, you'd be tone deaf. Giving you a really simple example on this one, guys. Similarly, you're building software. You're building a social network, and you are not listening to the culture of the users of your network. Your board doesn't reflect the users of your network. Your cap table doesn't reflect the users of your product or your service. um, you're going to have a problem. And so I believe here's my big prediction, right? Moving forward, I believe we're at this moment when consumers, and employees and investors are all swimming in the same pond together, right? Like I'm the employee who's also your customer, who also maybe has equity in the company because I joined the company early, so I have, some shares in the company. But you ownership, you capital structure, right, are not, you don't have a mechanism built in, right? And that could be everything from social listening, right? Like making sure you're listening to what people are saying out there, right? That's what I used to do when I had a social media agency. We built social media command centers so that we could listen externally. And then internally, what's the water cooler conversation? By the way, a lot of offices aren't around. So where is the water cooler? The water cooler is on Zoom now, right? Very difficult now. So you're not listening to your employees, you're not listening to your consumers, and then you decide to go and just get capital, just any kind of capital. I mean, money is money, right? No, there's smart money and there's dumb money. There's connected money and strategic money. So you just go out and get money, right? And without any thought towards the implications of what that looks like when you go on AngelList, right? AngelList is a platform that kind of you can go on and you can see who are the investors of the technology companies um, that you're supporting, right? So AngelList, what's the other? There's some other ones. You can go. There's ways you can find out who the investors are. Sometimes it's not public, but a lot of times you can, right? And so I believe that where we are is a collision of these segments coming together, right? And if you're not moving at the speed of culture and you're not in touch with those groups, you're gonna run the risk of of alienating. Um, that's the bad side. On the pro side, you have an opportunity to serve populations, both internally, your employees, to to make your employees profitable. To make them get amazing bonuses, to make to create an opportunity for your cap table, in many cases become phenomenally rich. That's great, right? Um, and to really beyond just that part, right? To empower people, right? Through through opportunities, through opportunities that are shared by lots of people, right? So I want my company and the opportunities to turn into other opportunities, right? To turn into maybe businesses that we're funding, right? That set up offices in or headquarters in cities that I think deserve dynamic companies, right? Why can't I help a company build a business in Columbus, Ohio, and encourage them to look at Columbus? Uh, why can't I support the community of Pittsburgh that are doing incredible things there? Um, what I absolutely want to look in the hood in Stockholm where Somalis and Albanians and Bosnians are all living together and find, an entrepreneur who's doing incredible things. Because that opportunity to give them life, to give them capital, to give them advice, give them opportunities is going to spread and create opportunities for other people. And I don't know. I just feel like that's the world that I want to create. That's the world I will create. And that's the world I'm creating. Um, I know this is a long-winded kind of journey through random capital structures, um, but I think it comes down to the human value, right? That you can be generous with your, you can be generous and make money at the same time. And to those business partners that got me, you know, um, I don't know how you sleep at night. I don't know. That's not for me to judge you. I'm not. I have no power to judge, and I know I've done some bad things, so I'm in no way perfect. Um, but I just feel like there's an opportunity to right the wrongs. There's an opportunity every day when we wake up. We have free will. We have free will to choose to kind of do and build and connect with the types of people that we believe represent our values. And so that's the business I'm building. And I actually, hey, you know what? Like those two bad business partners that ended up, you know, kind of creating an unfortunate situation for me and my family. Um, in many ways, they propelled me to be able to have this conversation with you today. They propelled me to build the Authenticated in the way that I wanted to build it, to reimagine what a community could look like, and to really restore faith in humanity. That you know what, there's some really good people out there. There's some really generous people out there, despite some takers. So in a world of takers and givers, we do this thing in our community called Give Get, where we ask people, what can you give to the community? What can you pour in, and then what can we pour into you? And it's sort of my way of combating, a couple situations that you know left a really bad taste in my mouth. And but those situations, I was able to turn into what we have today, and the ability to serve you in greater ways with a greater perspective um, on humanity, and recognizing that not that I'm not naive. Like I know people, I knew that. I guess I just wasn't thinking that these two individuals in this journey of called life and this journey that I've had in 25 years, that these situations would come to me, and would come to me through these individuals. So yeah, it's amazing how you can turn lemonade out of lemons, and that opportunity really allowed me to go deeper into like things like my meditation practice, which when I make decisions, I make it from a heart that every day I try to sit with and get in touch with, every morning before I come to you guys and send a tweet out or get on LinkedIn or get on Facebook or check my email. I mean, one of those things is really coming from a position of healing myself. I can't really, be loving to other people unless I'm loving to myself. So that's what I learned in those moments of being a founder, of being an entrepreneur, of being an investor, of being a father, being a husband. How do I get in touch with my own feelings around those things? And I was just listening to Sam Harris Waking Up app this morning, and I actually don't want life to be one long emergency. Like how do you actually recognize it, even in the moments where something really bad has happened, that you can be present with those feelings. And so that's what I've also been able to introduce, and would not have happened had those situations not happened to me, which forced me to really get in touch with my feelings. Um, and I remember being in South Africa, when I sent that first uh, WhatsApp message out to 50 people, and I was like, "Yo, you guys should really know each other. You guys should really get to know each other." And just the feeling that I felt around what was happening with them connecting. And that's how some of you Um, Maybe some of you are in a job right now that you hate, and you've been dreaming and scheming on how to build your own business. Maybe some of you have built your own business, and you're left questioning: Is this the right business? Am I in the right business? Um, you know, I would look. I would ask you, I guess, challenge you to look for a deep understanding of the stack, right? What does your business sit on top of? What are the values? Who are the people that are in your life? In your personal kitchen cabinet. One of the things I did really well when I lived in Atlanta is I built a kitchen cabinet. Right, I built a group of people that would always give me great advice that were diverse. I've always been building, these diverse teams. I have oh man, she was amazing. I had um, this mentor in Atlanta named Yum Arnold, and Yum Arnold was in her at the time. She was in her late 60s, and she was just wonderful. Shout out to Yum Arnold if you're listening. I feel like I should send this to Yum. And she was a Southern belle, white woman. Grew up in I think Virginia, and was actually one of the few white women on the board of Spelman. Um, and just incredible leader in the Atlanta community. Just giving, big heart. And her name is Claire Yum Arnold, and she had a company called Leapfrog in Atlanta. And yeah, I would get on her calendar probably every few months and talk to Yum. And if you saw us together, you'd be like, "How does James know this? This work?" I mean, we don't look like we hang out in the same places, right? But that was sort of the idea of the diversity of thought and folks that I wanted to surround myself around. My first client was Jane Fonda when I built my first business, and I actually had a sit down with Jane. That's actually how I met her, and we had breakfast. And over breakfast, I convinced Jane Fonda that we were going to build her a blog. It was crazy. It was at not Flying Biscuit, but Highland Bakery. Yes, and it's like food is really important for me. I really think I think about cities by like the restaurants. So shout out to my Atlanta, my beloved Atlanta, with all those incredible restaurants. And I sat down with Jane Fonda in probably 2007. No, it was 2008. In 2008, um, I over biscuits and jelly convinced Jane Fonda that we were going to build a blog. I wanted to be I wanted to be on her board, and so I was trying to convince her to consider me to be a board member. In the middle of me convincing her to be a board member, actually is crazy. I convinced her that I would build her blog. And yeah, I went 2 years. I built JaneFonda.com and got her on Twitter. And again, another unlikely person that you would think that I, would glean. But man, I learned so much from Jane Fonda, and I ended up joining her board, GCAP, and spent a couple of years on her board, and one of the better boards in Atlanta. And yeah, so I think I've always been one that's thought about this idea of a diverse kitchen, kitchen, and so what are you doing? What is your dream? What is your thoughts? What are you doing personally, and how does geography diversity, industry diversity, age diversity, um, uh, uh, ethnicity diversity. Sorry, could have started with that one. How does that um, how does that play into your life? One of the things, just speaking of that ethnicity diversity, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I grew up around Koreans, um, Thai, Filipinos, Tongan Samoans, Mexicans, um, and it's an unfair advantage. I always used to say, growing up the way I grew up in the Bay Area. And one of the things that I didn't love about Atlanta is it's a weird thing. I mean, Atlanta definitely is diverse in terms of African Americans and white people. But what I didn't love actually about Atlanta is I didn't have any real connection to Asian populations. I didn't have any Latinos really in my community. And it's something that I actually recognized moving back to California. Um, that I grew up as a Bay Area kid, knowing, you know, a good tortilla. What I mean? This is a small thing, but like I'm spoiled being back in California with just like a proper tortilla. You know what I mean? Like when you've had a proper tortilla, it's just a game changer, right? Like I grew up knowing, I don't know what pho was, or knowing what a lumpia was in Filipino culture. And when I lived in Atlanta, it just was black people and white people, and I'm generalizing. I'm not saying there are not, Asian populations, and in fact, one of the faster growing populations in Atlanta is the Korean population. Most people don't realize that. But like I recognize coming back to California that I really, really love the diversity across many, many ethnicities. I think it's why I'm. It's funny is I'm so drawn to Toronto, but I've never been to Toronto, and I'm just obsessed with Toronto because I think it's like this utopian, diverse world. So yeah, diversity is for me is a lot of things. And yeah, what are you working on? How are you stacking the table? How are you stacking your crew? And and you know, uh, what does that mean to you, and why is it important? For us, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Um, Thank you for tuning in from Dubai. I have a whole crew in Dubai. Um, I really, speaking of diversity, that was one of the places, my time in Dubai, that I, um, put myself in situations where I was uncomfortable, which I think is really an important ingredient, um, to those of you that have been listening to me for the last 50 minutes, and you're struggling with like where to start. Where to start would be putting yourself, being comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I, have always put myself in positions globally where I am in uncomfortable situations. So if I'm doing it, I expect that of you, right? Like you should do the same thing. When I used to go to Brazil. Like I was in the favela. I didn't really know about the favela culture, but I wanted to learn about favela culture, and I worked for Ketchum PR, part of Omnicom, and I helped the Sao Paulo office start the first social media practice area in Brazil, and I wanted to learn about what it meant to be in the favela. So I would go to the favela, and yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's police pull guns on us going in, like it's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. But I want to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. I mean, I know it might sound crazy. I actually I want to see my people. I want to see Black Brazilians, and it was important for me to see my people in, in Brazil. And so I spent a lot of time, and the people at Ketchum would be like, "Did you enjoy your weekend?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I went to the Ballet Funk." They were like, "The Ballet Funk? We don't even go to the Ballet Funk. You went to the Ballet?" Yeah, because I'm Black. I can take all this jewelry on. I can move around. Part of being, Black and being ethnically ambiguous is I get to move around the world. And I'm gonna lean into my superpower. And in Dubai, same thing. Like I went to Dubai. Probably by trip three of Dubai, I didn't really want to be the only. I didn't really want to be full of Americans or expats or people from London or whatever. I wanted to like I wanted to meet locals. I wanted to meet Emiratis. I wanted to meet I wanted to meet people. So I put my I remember I went to, I think you pronounce it Mujalis. I went to the Mujalis, and I met Ahmed, and someone set me up a meeting with this guy, Ahmed, and I ended up going to Mujalis, which is like after prayer, right? And I knew nothing about. I was like, "What do I wear?" I'm calling America back. I'm like, who do I, what do I wear? What do I do? What I, and and I like the driver came pick me up, and I went and hung out with my guys. I roll up, I walk into the house, and they were like, "Bro, chill." I mean, they didn't say it like this, but they basically were like, "Yo, we went to school in San Diego." They're like, "Yo, Rick Ross was just here last week." You know what I mean? They were like, and we just started having a whole conversation. Majlis, thank you, Majlis. We started having a whole conversation about like hip hop in America, and as we got to know each other and as we got to find commonalities, they began to tell me about, like getting their asses whooped, going to school in America, for being Muslim. And then we became humans, we became people that shared a commonality of dealing with white supremacy and racism in America. And so at that point, we became brothers, right? So my brothers in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Qatar, and I put myself in situations where it was uncomfortable. I didn't grow up Muslim. I didn't even know what Majlis was. It doesn't even matter. The language that we spoke was hip hop. That was our commonality. That was our common thread. Sneaker culture. You know what I mean? Like I met I met so many people around the world. I met my guy Omar Tom in Dubai because I was on my first trip to Dubai, and I sent a tweet and it said, "Yo, where's the dope sneaker stores at?" And then next thing you know, I'm sneaker shopping. So the idea is like put yourself in uncomfortable situations, find commonality with people wherever they come, because I'm doing it. So if I'm doing it, you can do it too, right? And I find commonality with the black brother, the white sister, the whatever. It doesn't even matter. Like I'm gonna find that common space, that common ground. I'm the guy on the airplane, by the way, that literally at the end of the flight has like literally made a best friend with whoever I'm sitting next to. It could be like random. And so I'm a bridge builder, and I'm an unashamed bridge builder. And bridge building is a skill, and bridge building can help you in all areas of your life, right? It's been incredibly enriching and rewarding for me. So, um, yes, Kenya Barris's character, Black as Fuck. What to talk about that, by the way? Kenya Barris, I call him like my play cousin because Kenya and I share, um, uh, the the good fortune um, of a woman who is incredibly important in my life, which was Judy Sampson. And so Judy Sampson is like a play on. Black people, we got play cousins and play ons. Um, Judy Sampson mentored um, Kenya Barris. So I've known Kenya for a long time. And I actually worked on Blackish. I helped launch Blackish, and incredibly proud of what Kenya has been able to accomplish. She's actually managed by my college classmate Brian Dobbins. And so yeah, I really I gotta watch Black AF again because it was great. It was a great run through. My wife hated it, but I actually loved it. So that's my show today. We're coming up on the hour. I appreciate you letting me just do an entire stream of consciousness, no periods, no paragraphs, for 1 hour. All of this comes from the top of the dome. I'm a freestyle MC, freestyle rapper. At least I play one on TV. And if you want to know more about the Authenticated, you can send me a text, 415-843-8100, 415-843-8100. We are just about to open membership. I'm really excited about that. And, would love to see you in the internets, hanging out with my peoples and them. I'm easy to find, easy to reach. And if you can't find me, you're not working hard enough. Tell me where you guys are from. Throw some cities in there. I see Dubai in the check-in. I see, is this, where else? Show me some other cities. This has been great, guys. You guys are incredible. Thank you every week for tuning in. Send us to a friend. Send it to somebody. If this thing is meaningful and you think it has value, send this to, anybody you think needs to build a business. Send this to disconnected white people at your company. Send this to disconnected black people at your company. It's not like black people can't be disconnected as well. Don't think that when I'm having these conversations, I'm not talking to black folks as well. Black folks, we are not exonerated or freed from living in a silo and living in a bubble, right? And that's, people of color. Yes, we are the victims of, spaces and places that are generally not diverse, but don't get it twisted. So, shout out to Calabasas. I see you. Shout out to Philly. Love Philly. I'll drop a John on you in a minute. Love a good cheesesteak and Ishkabibbles. New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Oh my, love New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Love my people in New Orleans. Um, yeah, great. Thank you for joining. This has been great. You guys are awesome. I love your comments. Thank you so much.